So, let's talk what to expect on day one. What is the shock and awe? I've been meaning to make this video for a while. I've kind of hinted for a long time and mentioned in passing for a long time that I have an idea of what that's going to look like. I've been putting off making this video for a while. Given the circumstances, we've got about 12 hours left guaranteed, so I really can't put it off any longer. Let's talk about the big day one shock and awe. What is that going to look like? Now, I don't know what all they have planned, but I know one thing that they absolutely do have planned. I made a video a while back talking about how the immigration and deportation things that they're talking about is a bait and switch. The people that they're talking about going after are legally authorized to be here in the United States. They simply aren't fully naturalized citizens yet. They are still being processed. But in that processing, people like the asylum seekers, not only are they authorized to be here in the United States, immigration and asylum law requires that they remain in the United States. They're not allowed to work. They're not allowed to get services. They're not allowed to do anything, but they have to stay here. That's why you have these giant migrant centers with thousands of people in them, because they have to be here. In Trump's first administration, on day one, he kept trying to implement his Remain in Mexico policy, and it got knocked down by the courts repeatedly. It wasn't until COVID happened and the National Emergency Declaration for Public Health happened that he was granted emergency powers, and particularly the Title 42 powers, that he was allowed to fully implement Remain in Mexico. The light bulb went off. Declaring an emergency gave him emergency powers. What we are going to see, and what Trump hinted at and referenced several times during the campaign, is a national emergency. If you frame the immigration issue as a national security issue, this is why throughout the campaign they kept calling it an invasion. This is an invasion. This is a threat to our national security. It's an invasion by foreign powers. If you declare a national emergency and you declare that, hey, this is an invasion, this is a concerted effort on the part of these countries to threaten our national security through immigration, you can do things like invoke the Alien Enemies Act. Why would you need to do that? Well, because all of those asylum seekers and people like that they want to target, that process is governed by federal law. You can't just go round these people up. They have a right to due process. That whole asylum process is governed by federal law. If you try to just go round them up and arrest them and deport them, you run up against federal law. And the courts have shown that they will slap Trump's hand if he tries to do that. If you declare an emergency and you invoke the Alien Enemies Act, well, now all of a sudden Tom Homan can go to Chicago and round people up with no warrants, with no probable cause, no due process, no judicial sign-off. He can just go round people up and put them on fucking planes, or stick them in a detention center in Texas on the 1,400 acres that Texas set aside for exactly that fucking reason. He could direct the National Guard or even the military to set up temporary camps because this is a national emergency. This is an invasion. We have to deal with this. He could have the National Guard go set up camps on that 1,400 acres and round everybody up from places like Chicago or New York or wherever and stick them on that fucking land in tents. And that would be completely legal because it's an emergency. It's an invasion. And this isn't hyperbole. This isn't, the sky is falling hysteria. These are things that he talked about in the campaign that we all wrote off as, oh, he's just Trump being Trump. He's talking out his ass to rile up the base. No, the only way for Tom Homan to start doing mass immigration raids and just rounding people up on Tuesday, which they've already announced they plan on doing, the only way for him to arrest government officials that don't follow his orders is by doing that. You do that and it all becomes legal. That's what I expect some of the shock and awe on day one is going to be. I fully expect there's going to be an emergency declaration. And even if it isn't the Alien Enemies Act, there's going to be some claim of emergency powers under that emergency declaration that extends to Tom Homan and ICE and CBP. And it's under those powers that they're going to sidestep due process and start rounding people up. That's going to be part of the day one shock and awe. Now, how far that extends, we don't know. How far down the rabbit hole they go with that, we don't know. How aggressively they pursue it, we don't know. But I would bet you dollars to donuts that there is some version of that strategy being implemented within the first 48 hours.